approval of agenda. I see no changes. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve agenda as read. I'll second.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Givens, seconded by Councilmember Lopez to approve the agenda.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Yes.
Givens,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yes.
and Prout.
Yes. Presentations. Chief, will you come forward and introduce us to our new officers, please?
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, I have three officers I'd like to introduce tonight. Given the situation, the current situation with COVID, we're going to do it via the board here. So the first one is Officer Marvin Gomez. Marvin has lived in the Bakersfield area for most of his adult life. Officer Gomez joined the United States Marine Corps at the age of 18 and participated in Operation Desert Storm. He later attended Bakersfield College and earned an associate's degree in business administration. Officer Gomez worked at the Kern County Probation Department for 3 years prior to joining the Sheriff's Department in 1999. Marvin worked various assignments for 20 years while at the Sheriff's Department, including patrol, academy instructor, honor guard, narcotics, gangs, SWAT crisis negotiations, among many others. Officer Gomez held the rank of sergeant for the last 9 years of his time at the Sheriff's Department, and he was hired by the city of Shafter last month. I can tell you from experience that he is recognized as one of the county's most efficient gang investigators. So I'm pretty proud that we were able to recruit Marvin over. Let's see. Next. Hopefully. There we go. Next up is Officer Matthew Sanchez. Officer Sanchez is also a native of Kern County. He began his law enforcement career with the Kern County Sheriff's Department as a detentions deputy in 2017 and went on to become a deputy sheriff in 2018. Officer Sanchez comes from a law enforcement family. His brother is a deputy sheriff and his father is currently a commander at the Department of Motor Vehicles. I worked with his father for a couple of decades over at the Sheriff's Office before he went over to the DMV. Matt moved to San Luis Obispo in 2019 and worked as a patrol officer for San Luis Obispo PD for about 2 years before being hired by the city of Shafter in May this year. Matt is currently in his second phase of field training. Next. Okay. And the last I will introduce is Officer Rachel Carrasco. Officer Carrasco is also a native of Kern County. She began her law enforcement career at the Kern County Sheriff's Department in 2006 as a detentions deputy. During the 15 years at the Sheriff's Department, Rachel's assignments included detentions deputy, deputy coroner investigator, detention senior deputy, academy instructor, recruit training officer, and professional standards investigator. Rachel was hired with the city of Shafter in June of this year, and she's currently in her first phase of field training. I can tell you that I'm very pleased with how our recruitment is going, that we're able to bring some of this talent over and to make the department that much better. Questions?
Chief, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you for all your efforts, but also to welcome those officers in joining our family. And I believe that we should be very proud that they have experience, but I think that they should feel very proud about coming to the city of Shafter. So thank
Agreed.
them very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else have
Hey,
comments?
Chief, great hires, especially with Gomez. Guy's a legend as far as experience, professionalism. He's very well known. Even in my world, he's very well known. So he's a very good addition to the city, along with the other two as well. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good
We're
picks.
really excited.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd just like to say I'm excited that they're young and the experience that they have and all that. I'm excited for the city and for the police department.
just want to say thank you, Chief, for all your hard work and selecting the best. Because that's what we want, the best. So thank you again for doing all that hard work and getting us the best. And I know they're not there, but I just want to tell them congratulations, welcome aboard, welcome to the family of Shafter, and hope they make a career out of this.
No, very good job.
Very
He's
good.
walking away from me already. I'm just excited to go meet him in person.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It's coming. Public comment. Do we have any public comment received yet?
No public comment at this time.
Nothing? Anyone in the audience here have anything they'd like to present? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to council announcements and reports. Pete, do you have anything to report?
On June the 2nd, I attended the Shafter Dreams mural ribbon cutting ceremony. And I'd like to thank Katie Weeby for all her hard work and all the volunteers that were involved in that. I think it brings a nice look to the city of Shafter. And thank you for all your hard work. And then on June 9th, I attended the Rotary meeting as a guest of Mayor Prout. That's it.
Caesar?
I have nothing to report at this time.
Chad?
Was part of the dream ceremony as well. Very cool to watch that mural kind of come alive and see the kids who are involved with it. We were also part of our first, I don't know how you want to say it, SEDS meeting?
Yeah.
Something like CEDS. How about that? We'll just go with the acronym
SEDS.
there, SEDS. And so it's really excited to see where that's going to go. I think we have a pretty good team, pretty unique team. So I'm really happy for that too.
I just want to share that I was there with Councilmember Espinoza and Mayor Pro Temp Givens and Mayor Prout at the mural ribbon cutting. That was really nice to see, and there was a lot of people. And I think I can't tell you who the gal that was there in charge.
Lorena, the artist?
The artist, is it Lorena?
Uh-huh.
She, you know,
Lorena Castillo.
she did an excellent job in coaching and helping and being in charge of that project. It looks very nice, and I think it'd be nice to do some more of those somewhere in the community. I know we did one many years back at the Rodriguez Park. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was Gibson's idea about the handprint, right?
On the bathroom?
The bathroom, just to help keep the graffiti down. So, and I think as of right now, there hasn't been no graffiti in that side of the wall. Everywhere else, but not that wall, that part. So I think if we could do some more of those, would be nice throughout the community. And also, I just want to make a quick announcement here. Shafter Alliance is going to be doing the Stuff the Bus on August 17th. It's a Saturday, the 21st at Dollar General. It's going to be from 9 to 12, and everyone here is invited. And it's a backpack drive, Stuff the Bus, and all the backpacks, all the school supplies donated will be given to Healthy Start, which is part of the Richland School Districts. And they mainly help with the most needy families in our community, which they work with throughout the whole year. So they know exactly who are the most needy folks. So that's what we'll be doing on August 17th on a Saturday. So that's it.
Okay. Yes, and we missed you, Caesar, at the ribbon cutting because it was really, really nice. There were lots of people there, and our students were so nervous and yet very proud because they were part of it and they got to stand up and be recognized. We will be inviting them in the fall to come before us and present them a personal resolution or a certificate because they'll have something to remember that by. But it was exceptionally a standout, and our muralist was most pleased. It was a nice gesture for her because she's come here to be with her mom, and she comes from Watsonville, and very, very excited about the whole project. And I believe that she will be seen again. The SEDS committee, yes, we did start the SEDS committee, which is for economic development and a possible entry or an application for consideration of funding. And I want to mention Jonathan Hudson, we put in as the chair, and Russell Shipley as the vice chair. And then there's Chad, myself, and Stefan Taylor, who comes from Target as an engineer out at Target, and then Linda Martin, who is, of course, local resident, but they owners of American Refuse. The meeting went very well in trying to come up with a pretty good list of our strengths, our weaknesses, opportunities, as well as threats. And we will have another meeting this week, but then we'll have a chance to bring it all before the council. So you'll get to see everything that's been put down, but it was good input, I felt. I think with Michael starting it out with just a basic outline and what they could add and all, it was really, it should be a winner. And we already have several projects that we can get money to earmark towards. And so that one should be a rewarding project in the end. Okay, then I attended a task force meeting, and they're usually on a weekday on Wednesday at 9 o'clock. And we did have them on Zoom for a while, and then now they've been meeting at the Mennonite Church in their big room. And the members that come get to give information and exchange whatever they give, we can get, or vice versa. And CASA just graduated a class, and they're going to start up a new class. So if you know of anybody that wants to participate, we can check with Debbie Haley. She is a good representative from our Shafter community. The rec district just updated us on their signups and starting the season for baseball and softball, but soon they'll have volleyball, tennis, and football coming up. The other one that's exciting, and maybe some of you know it, they have a 746 Sports Foundation. Are you familiar with that, Susan? And they're going to do a fundraiser, and it's going to be a vendor fair on July the 17th. It'll be held at the Walker Center. And I think what's good about it is that we could have a chance to get people to come down there and just mix and see what they've got and see how we can help make them be a success and start their campaign with their projects that are coming up too. Yeah, Philip also told us about the summer day camp that runs every day from 7:30 to 5:30. Well run, many, 71, I believe, had already signed up for it. It's a good program for the summer for Shafter. And then the other one that's going to come along, and we'll get more information, was a food insecurity project, which Linda Martin is heading up, and it will take a lot of the recycled food that's already, instead of wasting it, being used, and to help our own local citizens. And they'll have deliveries that will happen, could happen just every day. It kind of complements what City Serve has done, but they're just going to concentrate on the food part of it at this time. Okay, then on the 10th, of course, was the mural committee, and Caesar forgot about this one. We met with Pablo at Don Pepe's, or with Don Pepe's, because they have put on some murals with an artist who came in that he met in the restaurant, and is really kind of interested about adding more. But we did approve, and they're done individually, but I think they're very well done. If you drive by, you can see them. They're in the wall that faces the parking lot, and then we approved one that will face Lerdo Highway. So you might notice, and then maybe have some comments back to Pedro. He was pretty excited about it. And then last night was a meeting for AB 617, and you hear me report on this project often. It's been going on for 2.5 years, I believe. And I know Michael was there representing Shafter and myself, and there's Linda Martin was there, Michelle McManus, Angie Nelson also comes. There may have been a couple that I'm missing that don't belong to the EJ group or the Race, Poverty, and Environment, which has a pretty strong, pretty strong appearance as well as emphasis in trying to steer funding for this area. I believe that they're not going to be left out, and I think they feel very pleased and working together, but they're very excited right now because the ag commissioner or the ag commissioner from Bakersfield that won't go along and start notification for pesticides that are used or sprayed or whatever in farming land areas. So that got a little heated, and if you've been noticing, they have had some protests and they always link Shafter to it. But they're really looking to do more in the whole state, so it could affect the whole state. Now, notification isn't going to eliminate it, but it definitely gives everybody the appearance and the awareness that, you know, we will all know what's being used on the crops that are surrounding our areas. So there should be more coming on that. There was some budget items. There's $60 million allocated that we could spend. And they do have some projects that are identified. And I don't want to go into all of that because they haven't, well, some of them have already been addressed. I mean, it goes all the way from vehicles to buses to trains to cars to, I mean, it's really pretty widespread and it's to clean up the air. So we all benefit in all ways. And really to make it clear, understandable to everybody, the pesticide issue has always been on the minds of some of these people. And yet pesticides isn't really the air that's the most important. But with the air district involved and all, that's trying to address that and to make it so that it's safe for everybody. So that one's another one to watch. The only other one I might mention is they had a presentation from the county of Kern, and they needed a letter of support for a grant application for sidewalks that they could put in at Mexican Colony. So there was a letter approved or okay to send from the 617 committee in support of this grant application for sidewalks that will help out there at Mexican Colony. And there are lots of other projects that may still fit in other areas, and Mike is doing all that he can to work with them, as well as to push some of the projects locally for Shafter, roundabout, other sidewalks in the area. Just, you know, there's lots of other ways that we can benefit. So Mike may want to expand on it later as we get more information. But that concludes what I had. Okay, consent calendar. We have lots of items on the consent calendar, and some of them are really very interesting. I want to quickly go through them. We have checks and payroll and minutes. And then on the number 4 item, we have the cancellation for our council meeting on July the 6th, which is the next meeting. Number 5 is to accept quotes received for materials testing for the 2021 Express and West Beltway construction project. And it goes to Crazen and Associates in the amount of $28,068. Number 6 is to approve a proposal submitted by Kern Asphalt Paving and Sealing for pavement repairs on Merced Avenue, and in the amount of $21,366. Number 7 is to adopt resolution 2806, which authorized submittal of applications for all Cal Recycle grants. And to add to that one, another adoption of resolution number 2807 that would authorize the interim environmentally preferable purchasing policy to consider for future grants, as well as in Cal Recycle. Number 8 is to approve the agreement for the completion of public improvements with Lennar Homes for track 7319-2 and track 7319-3. Number 9 is the approval, and the number 9 and 10 kind of go together, is to approval of the final map, which is in ministerial, and approve that final map for 7319 phase 2, as well as 7319 phase 3. One of them has 97 lots, and one of them has 91 lots. Number 11 is the termination agreement for a lease agreement that was dated for June the 1st of 2010 with MI LLC SWACO for the property at 4400 Fanuki Way. And we have another business that's ready to come in and move into that facility. Number 12 is to approve the purchase of the Microsoft Windows Server 2019 data center software licenses from GHA Technologies in the amount of $30,036.64. And that will allow upgrades to the current operating system needed for modern applications. Number 13 is approve the purchase of a subscription from Samsara for stable cloud-based network video recorder solutions which entails signing a 36-month contract with the amount of $11,595.13. Number 14 is to authorize city manager to execute a lease agreement with URM Technologies for the use of our 4.09 acre city container yard, including the modular office on site as a temporary trailer storage site. That company is coming to us from Valencia, and they just need this temporarily because they are being located at the wonderful project. Okay, and then number 15 is adopt resolution number 2814, which is adopting a list of projects for fiscal year 2021, 2022 funding of SB1, which is the Road Repair and Accountability Act. And I guess we're earmarking those funds for East Euclid, which is from James Street all the way to Nickel Street. Should be a nice improvement for that area, and they recommend it lasts for 20 years. The estimated cost is $650,000. So that concludes that. Any questions on any of the consent items? Some good projects, good activities. Okay, hearing none. We'll move on to public hearing.
You want
Mayor,
me to-
can we get a roll call, please?
I'll
Motion
make
for
a
a roll
motion
call?
to approve the consent calendar as
Oh,
read.
that's right. That is important, isn't it?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Chad Givens for consent of calendar and seconded by Councilmember Lopez.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Yes.
Given,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yes.
and Proud.
Yes. Okay, now we can do the public hearing now. Okay. First item is to adopt resolution number 2808, which is the Urban Water Management Plan, and resolution number 2809, Water Shortage Contingency Plan.
Certainly, Mayor and Council, this is an item that we're required to perform every 5 years. There's 2 items that you'll be asked to take action. One is the plan itself. The other is the resolution for the water shortage. We have Mike James, our Public Works Director, along with our Utility Manager, Marco Torres, who will be making the presentation on this item. And then just really quick, the next 2 items under the public hearing, the annual levy and the Gossamer Grove. Our Public Works Director will also be making those staff reports on those. So with that, Mike.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, members of the Shasta City Council, I'd like to open this introduction by having Marcos Torres, your utilities manager, provide a little bit of background on the need for an urban water management plan. And then we'll hand things off to our consultant that prepared the plan, which I believe the city clerk has provided a printed copy, so you can follow along if you wish. So with that, I'd like to hand things off to Marcos.
Thanks, Mike. Good evening, Mayor and members of the Shasta City Council. As Mike has mentioned, Public Works has been tasked to update its urban water management plan. The plan has been prepared in compliance with the Urban Water Management Planning Act of 1983. The act requires that every urban water supplier providing water to more than 3,000 customers to prepare and adopt such plan. The plan is intended to be a long-range planning tool covering topics such as water sources, reliability, drought assessment, conservation, and contingency planning. The next plan, which is the 2020 update, is due by July 1st of this year. It's worth noting that the prior 2 updates of this plan were completed in-house, but due to new regulations and limited staff time, some outside assistance was recruited. Council previously authorized the plan preparation to West and Associates earlier this year. This firm has completed the plan and has prepared a brief virtual presentation that covers some background and highlights of this year's plan. I would now like to introduce Mr. Philip West with West and Associates, who will be going over the presentation.
Thank you, Marcos. Can everyone hear me and see me just fine?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Does everyone have the presentation and either on the screen or in front of them?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, sounds good. I'll go ahead and start the presentation now. Okay, so basically, thank you for having us present the Urban Water Management Plan. Basically, as Marcos noted, the Urban Water Management Plan is an item that is submitted to the State Department of Water Resources once every 5 years. Basically what a UWMP can provide for the city, instead of just only of being a regulatory compliance document, is that it can provide a basis for the city to prepare other plans, such as the water master plans and other types of plans, such as the general plan. So it has other uses and benefits as well, not just being a planning document. So moving on to the next slide here, we have legal foundations. What started the UWMPs was the 1983 Urban Water Management Planning Act. There's been multiple amendments since that time. There's been probably over a dozen actually, but the most significant has been the 2009 Water Conservation Act. What that did is it established water use restriction, or excuse me, conservation targets. So agencies can set a target based on their baseline use, and I think it was in the mid 90s to the early 2000s. And it allowed for up to 20% conservation. The city has met that target, and we'll get into that a little bit later here. Moving on to the next slide here, we've got the recent updates. Here we go. We've got several updates. These actually have all been pretty significant updates from the 2015 urban water management plans. And the most significant out of these, probably I would have to say, is the 6-stage water shortage plan. And what that does is it updates the city's water shortage contingency plan, which we'll touch on here in a little bit in this next few slides. So if you're moving on to the next slide here, we have UWMP requirements. Marcos touched on it briefly, but basically it's any agency with 3,000 or more customers, meaning service connections or acre feet of supply. An acre feet is roughly a third of 1 million gallon. An average size tank in the city is 1 to 2 million gallons, potential a little bit more depending on the size. So if you think about like maybe half of that would be what an acre feet more or less is. So 3,000 more acre feet. The city has both, I believe, of those. So every 5 years, these things are updated. 2015 was the most recent update that city staff completed internally. The deadline for this year's plan is July 1st. I want to make a quick note, though, that agencies that do submit after July 1st, not that that will happen, but that they're still eligible for state grants or loans. It'll just be based on if you have another agency that competes for the same funding, say the same project that they're looking to do, there might be some competition there. But agencies that submit on time are perfectly set to receive state grants or loans. Next slide, please. Content of the city's UWMP, and we're just going to touch on some brief highlights here, but basically there's 9 sections, and this more or less coincides with the city's guidebook. And the order is on a few of them has switched a little bit. I think we provide a good order that reads logically from start to finish. I think it touches on the city's broad service area, goes into supplies, talking about demands and how the supplies and demands line up under drought conditions under Section 7 reliability. So as you can see there, there's the 9 sections. All right, we're gonna move on to the next slide here. Some highlights. So basically what this city has in their water service area is around 20,000, a little over 20,000 persons. The water service area is a little bit higher than that, or excuse me, it's a little bit lower than that, just given the fact that a portion of the city jurisdictional boundaries are not served by the city's water system. There's been a little bit of development in the past 5 years. However, the Gossamer Grove is actually served by Oildale Mutual Water Company. So some of the growth that you've seen in the city is not necessarily the city's water service area population. However, the city's water service area population is still expected to increase over the next several decades due to development. So moving on to the next slide, please. Here's a little brief map of the city's water service area, and this is a cool map. It shows you the different zones and the different tanks that serve those zones. And within each zone, there are wells that serve those zones, and we're not going to get into that right now for sake of time. But we studied and analyzed that. And it's part of the water management plan that can be addressed if you want to check it out a little bit later. So the biggest area you can see there in the blue up in the corner, that's the area that's served by the Oildale Mutual Water Company. And next slide, please. We've got basically the city only has groundwater sources. There's actually 6 active groundwater wells, a total of 9 wells. 3 of the wells, sometimes they routinely are down for maintenance or other types of needs. That's just the current number of wells. The city is planning on adding, potentially they're planning and considering in its early stages right now, nothing set in stone yet, but additional wells will likely be added over the next few decades. Currently, the well capacity is around 4,500 million gallons per year, which is around 4.5 billion gallons annually. The groundwater basin from which the city pumps its groundwater is the Kern County subbasin. There's been a recent update as of 2014 that it was required under the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. And what that did is it allowed the city to be part of a groundwater sustainability agency with several other agencies to help manage and study the basin supplies, the groundwater levels. And there's a recent report that was prepared that provided an umbrella overview of the basin. So that's been very helpful. Next slide, please. Here's a quick photo of one of the city's wells. As you can see here, the city sometimes uses not only a well itself housed in a structure, but also other features that help provide the optimal water quality to the city's water distribution system. And next slide, please. Okay, recycled water potential. So basically the urban water management plans, they want to have every agency study the potential for recycled water. In the city's case, the city discharges to the north of the River Sanitary District wastewater treatment plant, which is a mutual treatment plant that serves both cities' discharges plus the NORSD's discharges. There's a large trunk line that goes from east heading west to the treatment plant. The treatment plant, it only treats up to the secondary standards. And so what that means is that it's not fully recycled water. It's something that can be used for recycled purposes, but not for full, what they call Title 22 recycled water. So there's some current uses that they use the recycled water, or the treated wastewater for, including groundwater percolation. What that does is it recharges the basin. And another need is that they use it for is for crop irrigation, for low-level alfalfa type of crop irrigation. So if you go to the next slide here, what we did is we prepared this little map here that shows some of the effluent in irrigation area uses of the treated effluent of the wastewater treatment plant. So as you can see here, there's quite a bit of area that gets beneficial use out of the treatment plant. As well as you can see here right below in the middle there, the screen, there's some ponds. Those are the 4 groundwater percolation ponds. And so a lot of the city's wastewater, it does get used after it's treated to a better quality to percolate into the groundwater and replenish the aquifers. So that's a good thing. Next slide, please. As you can see here, here's a sketch we did. It just shows the length of the recycled water main. So due to the fact that the city's treatment plant would require expensive upgrades, plus the cost of a pipeline, at this time, recycled water was determined not to be feasible. And of course, when the UWMP is updated in 5 years, the city can certainly take another look at that and and evaluate whether or not it is more feasible at that point in time. So next slide, please. Okay, currently the demands in the city are around 1,600 million gallons, which is about 1.6 billion gallons. The city does project the demands up to the year 2045. That's required basically of every plan is to go to about 25 years into the future. There's been gradual improvements in water use efficiency, which have allowed the water consumption to not be linear with population growth. It actually has been pretty steady. And the reason for that is even though you're adding additional connections, you're actually lowering your individual usage, which makes the increase in demand kind of a net, kind of flat growth rate, which is great. And currently, just one real quick highlight here is the residential use accounts for about 73% of total water use in the city. So that's quite a bit, and most of it's residential. So next slide, please. We have the contingency plan. This is the big portion of the plan. This is actually not only just a portion of the UWMP, but also a standalone document. It's a actual 6-stage plan, and it was a recent change that DWR did. Some agencies have decided to consolidate some of these stages, and so what we did is we instead decided to split them. So what we have here is that customers are only notified of stages 1, or excuse me, only required to have restriction under stages 1 to 3, but they're also notified of 4 to 6. And what that will do is it allow them to implement the same restrictions, maybe at a more vigorous level. So, for example, they go, oh, we're in stage 4 now, or 5. We'll have to, cut back a little bit more of your part, And rather than confusing them with, multiple stages, it is a little of a confusing thing that DWR did. I think DWR just had, one size fits all approach. So what we did is we tried to do our best to help make it streamlined, so the city customers are not confused by too many stages, and the city water staff can handle stages 4 to 6 internally with their own response actions. So next slide, please. Here's a sample of a tank. Even though the tanks are kind of mainly used for water balance, and what that does, it means just on a daily basis, they help maintain pressure in the mains. They're not really there to sort of be relied on for long-term interruptions in supply if they're, say, where the wells were to go down. But they can provide, 1 to 2 days worth of use during a brief emergency situation. So next slide, please. Conclusions. So what we have here is the capacities by the groundwater wells are sufficient to meet demands, even under drought conditions. And recycled water may be available for 2045. If that's the case, then they'll even more so increase reliability of the city's water system to meet all demands. And should there be any sudden shortages or disasters that restrict supplies, the city can implement the provisions of the water shortage contingency plan that we just mentioned in the previous section. So next steps here, we have, next slide please, we've got the city council needs to adopt the WMP by resolution, as well as a WSCP. Those will be 2 separate resolutions, or I believe that there was 2 of them prepared for tonight's meeting. And then within 30 days of adoption, actually, it needs to be done by July 1st, so it'll be within a couple of weeks. So we'll be submitting a DWR through their online submittal tool. We'll be also providing copies to the city and to the state and the state library and to the county. So with that said, any questions at all?
Any questions from council? No. Yes.
Well, Honorable Mayor, members of the Shasta City Council, I'd like to thank Weston Associates for the presentation, and most importantly, all of their hard work over the past few months. It's greatly appreciated by the department. I'd like to point out that the draft of this plan was submitted to local water stakeholders, special districts, developers to get their input. And we've also posted a copy of the plan on our webpage. And to date, we have received no verbal or written comments. What we need to do now is conduct a public hearing on the planned adoption of the Urban Water Management Plan and the Water Shortage Contingency Plan to formally allow for public input. The city clerk made sure that notice of this hearing was properly published. And at the conclusion of the hearing, we ask that you consider adoption of Resolution 2808, which covers the Urban Water Management Plan, Resolution 2809, which covers the Water Shortage Contingency Plan, and also find that the adoption of the plans are exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. So unless you have any immediate questions or concerns for staff, we request that you conduct the hearing.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. If anyone cares to address the council, you may come forward at this time. Any comments for or against or questions? Nothing? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. If any questions or comments from the council? No?
I do have one comment, and it's a very well put report and presentation. I want to say thank you to that. It's good to see that we're good until 2045, especially with all the talk of drought and obviously working with Sigma and what's happening there. I think you guys have done a fantastic job putting this together and at least letting us see that we have something to fall back on and we have reliable systems. And so I just want to say thank you to that.
I appreciate that. And this will be, we'll have updates every 5 years at least. And so this will be something we'll continuously monitor and report to the council on.
Yes, at this time, I'll ask for a motion, but I also wanted to say thank you for coming forward and sharing the information and helping us get through this process. Thank you very much. And we need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve as read. Look at this man over here.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Givens, seconded by Councilmember Espinoza to approve resolution number 2808 and resolution 2809.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Yes.
Givens,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yes.
and Prout.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to number 2, which is ordering the annual levy of assessments for the existing landscaping and lighting districts and a request to conduct a public hearing.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, members of the Shafter City Council, in order to fund our 12 existing landscape and lighting districts, the city has to conduct what's referred to as an annual levy of assessments. Prior to tonight's meeting, the council approved an engineer's report that was prepared for each of the 12 districts, and this report contains the projected costs as well as recommended assessments to cover those costs. So these revenues and costs were factored into the draft fiscal year budget that's up for approval tonight. So at this point, we're asking that the council conduct the required public hearing, and at the close of the public hearing, consider adoption of resolution 2810, which would formally order the annual levy of assessments. And I should point out that with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 districts, we're looking at increases of 1.6% to the assessments for each benefiting lot. This will help us to stay current with the projected costs, but within the consumer price index, which is typically the driver for what we're allowed to do. But we're also capped at 4% every year. So in case you're wondering.
The more units that hook in or are built, help you keep it down, right?
Honorable Mayor, that's definitely true in the case of Gossamer, which is rapidly developing and rapidly evolving. Most of these districts are fully developed, so we don't necessarily add lots. We just have to make sure that we're on top of the electric bills for the street lighting and the landscape and maintenance costs for the public streetscape areas.
Okay, I understand. Any other questions? Okay, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone care to address the council may come forward or send in your remarks, comments. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Okay, council, what's your pleasure?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Alvarado, seconded by Councilmember Lopez to adopt resolution number 2810.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Yes.
Givens,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yes.
and Prout.
Yes. Okay, we're going to move on to number 3 item is the sewer and refuse service charges for Gossamer Grove development.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, members of the Shafter City Council, similar to the landscape and lighting district, there's a process to an annual levy process for recovering sewer and solid waste collection charges in the Gossamer Grove community. Unlike the core city, the residents aren't billed monthly for these services. They're billed through property tax assessments. And so an engineer's report has been prepared to recommend assessments, and they're consistent with in the case of sewer, with the citywide rate plan that's already been adopted by the council. And in the case of solid waste, it's consistent with the franchise service fees that have already been adopted by the council as well. So with that, we're asking that the council consider adoption, after conducting the hearing, consider adoption of resolution 2811, which would order the assessments to recover the appropriate sewer and solid waste charges. Thank you.
Okay. This time I'd like to open the hearing for anyone on sewer and refuse service charges for Gossamer Grove development. Anyone care to come forward this time? Hearing none. We'll close the public hearing. Any questions from council?
I'll make the motion to adopt a resolution 2811.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Alvarado, seconded by Councilmember Lopez.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Yes.
Givens,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yes.
and Prout.
Yes. Jobs, right. Okay, the first item under management reports is the appropriations limit for fiscal year 2021-22, consistent with Article 13B of the California Constitution and selecting the annual adjustment factors.
Currently, Mayor and Council, the next two items are related to the adoption of the proposed budget. The first step is approving the GAN limitation as read regarding our California code. And so our Administrative Services Director, Bryce, will make the presentation on both items. Bryce.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As mentioned, this is the appropriations limit that is required by the California Constitution. The requirement came through the legislature as the GAN initiative, or sometimes called the GAN limit. This is an annual requirement, again, on cities, counties, and the state to adopt each year. Although it's listed as an appropriations limit, really it's a limit on revenues from tax and tax proceeds. The calculation, as discussed at the previous budget study session, is derived from a base year, in this case 1978 to 79, and increased each year thereafter by two growth factors, percent change in population and multiplied by the percent change in cost of living. For the two factors, the city gets to select among two options. For population, it's either percent change in the city's population or the county's population. The city is selected, or is recommended the city's population, which is 3.46%, which is higher than the county's. The cost of living, the city has the option of choosing the per capita personal income for the state of California, at this point 5.73%. And the alternative is the local assessment roll, or the change in the local assessment roll due to addition of local non-residential new construction. As reported out the last budget workshop, the data is not yet available from the county. We have had more success in identifying the person in the assessor's office that could generate for the report for it, and we're pursuing that data through them. And once that data is received, if the rate is higher, staff can prepare an amendment to use in the valuation and increase it. But for the purposes of this adoption tonight, we are recommending the per capita personal income. When we look at those two factors multiplied together, the effective increase is about 9.4%. When we look at the 21 appropriations limit of 322.3 million, that percentage factor increase pushes up to 352.5, almost 352.6 million, an increase of about $30 million. To put that in perspective, our appropriations that are subject to limit is only 25.5 million. So our appropriations do not even exceed the amount of growth that we have in that limit. So our total revenues projected in the fiscal year 22 budget is under the limit by $327 million. So at this point, that completes the presentation. Our recommendation is to adopt the resolution 2813 to set the appropriations limit and the calculation method. Happy to respond to any questions.
Questions, anyone? Ready for motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Council Members Lopez, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Givens to approve resolution number 2813.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Yes.
Givens,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yes.
and Proud.
Yes. Next item is the adoption of proposed operating budget fiscal year 2021-2022.
Certainly, Mayor and Council, we're pleased to present to you a balanced budget for the proposed upcoming fiscal year. It's our operating budget comprised of all the funds, the general fund, and the budget continues to focus on priorities established by you as a council. If you recall last year's budget, the 2021, we were right in the middle of the pandemic. We didn't know what to expect. We didn't know what the economy was or wasn't going to do. Based on projections of economists at the time, they were all predicting a slump in the economy. And so we were very prudent in the approach we took in last year's budget. Basically, what we attempted to do was to maintain our service levels without reducing service levels, without doing any layoffs, without doing any concessions. Unlike other cities throughout the state that got hit harder with their loss of revenues from tourism, for example. We in Shafter were not as less fortunate as them because we were able to sustain. As you have heard during the budget workshops, our revenues actually held up stronger than we anticipated at the beginning of the budget year. And so that has carried over into the new fiscal year. So if you recall, just by way of background, in the current fiscal year 2021, we projected a loss of revenue of approximately $4 million. As we have shared with you during the workshops, that did not materialize because of robust sales of online sales with Williams-Sonoma. So taking that in consideration, the proposed 21-22 budget, operating budget, continues to take a conservative approach with our revenues, with our expenditures. Again, focusing on quality of life, focusing on public safety, on our infrastructure. And so the budget is built around that. It is a balanced budget. We are not anticipating any decreases in revenues like we did last year. And unlike last year that we were basically just holding the line and kind of getting through the pandemic, we're in recovery now. I think today's indicative of where we are as a state in our economy. Businesses are at full reopening. A lot of the restrictions are been lifted. And so we are hoping that the budget and our revenues will continue to reflect that as we continue to move forward. So primarily the budget, like I said, focuses on the priorities established on quality of life. Public safety, you have authorized additional positions to continue to maintain the safety of our community. Safety of our community plays a lot of important factors in terms of how we are viewed as a city, in terms of how we attract businesses, our residents, and overall the community as a whole. It continues to build on infrastructure. There's a number of infrastructure projects proposed, streets, water, sewer, some major capital improvement projects geared with that as well. Without a solid infrastructure, makes it difficult to attract businesses, makes it difficult to build homes. And as you know, we have a lot of activity in both those areas. So the budget continues to focus on that. Continues to focus on our current service levels. Again, we're not looking to reduce service levels. There's no layoffs, there's no concessions, there is no reduction in the budget whatsoever. But it is, again, focused to maintain our current service levels as we move forward. And so with that, we're pleased to present to you the operating budget after a lot of work that's gone into it. And I'll now defer to Bryce to give you a few slides of the overall budget. With that.
Mayor, Council, again, we're pleased to present the proposed budget for council consideration of adoption tonight. As City Manager Gonzalez mentioned, it's focused on maintaining the existing service levels after the budget reductions in 21, while also making strategic increases in priority functions. And, I'm sorry, let me go back here. These include public safety, public works, library services, capital equipment, planning mandates, and also building inspections for commercial development. I'll begin with a look at the revenues. Again, as a high-level summary, the general fund revenues total about $31.4 million. This includes $31.2 million in revenue generated by the general fund, as well as a transfer in of $162,000 in special revenue funds, namely law enforcement supplemental funds. When we review all the funds, excluding the internal service funds, the revenues total $50.2 million. Our internal service funds will receive $3.6 million from the other funds of the city for their operations, again, through internal service fund charges. High-level look at our expenditures. The general fund will see $30.9 million in expenditures. $19.4 million of these will be for operating costs. The remaining $11.5 million in capital costs are made up of $10.3 million in revenue sharing pass-through payments and $1.2 million in capital projects. And that $1.2 million does not include a $250,000 grant from Prop 68 funds. When these expenditures are deducted from the revenues projected, the general fund will end with a surplus of nearly $500,000. The total expenditure budget for all funds, except again, internal service funds, is $53.8 million. $27.9 million of that is in operating costs, and $25.8 million are in capital projects and pass-through payments. Again, the internal service fund expenditures will total $3.6 million, matching the revenue of the payments from the other funds. On this slide is a capital improvement plan expenditures by category. This excludes the revenue sharing pass-through payments, which by past practice has been included in the capital improvement plan. General government projects of $300,000 and Parks and Recreation projects of $1.2 million are listed as general fund. Now, this number does include the $250,000 grant from Prop 68 funds. That total is about 9.8% of the total $15.4 million of capital projects in the budget. Streets and roads carries the largest amount at $10.3 million. The water system follows in second by $2.7 million, followed by $851,000 in wastewater projects, and then $35,000 for refuse containment or containers. It's a very high-level overview of the budget document in your packet. Staff is recommending adoption of Resolution 2812, approving and adopting the fiscal year 21-22 operating budget and capital improvement plan. That completes the presentation, and again, happy to address any questions or comments.
Any questions from council? I know we spent a lot of time on this, and I thank you very much for all the times and efforts that you had to put into it. Also, one of your first budgets for us too, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So is there any other comments? Okay, we'll entertain a motion.
It looks good. Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Givens, seconded by Councilmember Lopez to approve resolution number 2812.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Yes.
Givens,
Yes.
Lopez.
Yes.
Espinoza
Yes.
and Prout.
Yes. The next item is the approval to amend the adopted 21 fiscal year 21 position control list by adding a third building inspector 1 position.
So the Mayor and Council, we have an opportunity to be proactive in the building department. As you know, we currently have 2 building inspector 1 positions. One of those currently, the incumbent in one of those positions currently is out on medical leave and is planning to retire here in August. That's the timeline they've given us. So we recently conducted interviews for the building inspector 2 that you previously authorized for us to recruit. And during that recruitment process, there was a candidate that our chief building official, Dennis Fielder, feels that is compatible to the city. And knowing that we're going to have a vacancy here in a matter of 2 months upon the retirement of the incumbent, we want to be proactive in hiring the second candidate that's suitable for the inspector 1 position sooner rather than later. It's also important to point out that right now it's a very competitive market in what not only cities, but you probably heard private sector too is struggling to hire individuals. You can always find a warm body, but that's not always what you want. You want to find the people that are competent, qualified for the position, and we have an opportunity like that today. So what I'm asking of you after consulting with our building official is knowing that so we have 2 positions. One of them currently, the incumbent is out on disability. So we really just have the 1 position that's active. The individual does plan to retire. They've made it very clear that they plan to leave employment in August, no later than September. So after consulting with the city attorney's office, we can't necessarily eliminate that position because the individual was technically still employee of the city. So therefore, we're asking to increase building inspector 1 positions from 2 to 3, contingent on the fact that once the incumbent that's out on disability planning to retire in August, no later than September, upon retirement of that individual, we will eliminate his position and we will reduce from 3 to 2. But the advantage that and the opportunity we're taking of is hiring that person now rather than waiting. And so again, this is what we believe to be a proactive step in knowing what the market, how difficult it is in the market. 2, we have a candidate lined up ready to join our organization. And knowing the amount of work, as you heard from our chief building official, they're extremely busy with what we have at the WIP and Gossamer Grove, that bringing on someone now versus waiting would be very beneficial to the development community, the construction community, and of course for our staff. So our recommendation is to authorize the increase of 1 chief building inspector 1 from 2 to 3, contingent on the fact that once the incumbent of the 1 position retires, we will reduce from 3 to 2. So that's my recommendation.
Thank you. Is there any comment, questions? Sounds good. At least we have two candidates ready to go, huh?
I'll make a motion, we approve that.
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Lopez, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Givens to approve the amending for the position, Inspector 1.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Yes.
Given,
Yes.
Lopez.
Yes.
Espinoza
Yes.
and Pro.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to the city manager comments and reports.
So in Samaritan Council, 4th of July is right around the corner. If you recall last year, given the amount of illegal firework activity we were seeing in our community in a response to our residents, we adopted an urgency ordinance that consisted of $1,000 fine for anybody caught lighting illegal fireworks. And in the short period of time, we did a community campaign to inform our residents. And then closer to the holiday, and then on the holiday itself, our police department was out there enforcing. So with that, our chief and our communications engagement manager will make a brief presentation to you. Chief Zimmerman will share with you information of last year's activity, and then also share with you what we plan to do again this year. And Rachel will cover the outreach that we'll be doing to the community to, again, educate them and share information with them about the illegal fireworks activity, encouraging people to not engage in those activities because we will cite you and it's $1,000 fine. So with that.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. So I'll go over just some brief reminders for everyone here and our community. Some tips and just what we're posting out on social media. You've probably already seen some of it. We started last week, and then Chief Zimmerman will talk to you guys about some of the stats from last year on the Unite We Cite campaign that we pushed out. So just some reminders and tips. Our police and city officials are warning residents not to buy, purchase illegal fireworks, and only use the safe and sane fireworks that are purchased, that you can purchase from city permitted fireworks stands. Residents who see illegal fireworks should not, this is a good reminder, should not call 911 as we want to keep those emergency lines open. Instead, they should call the Shafter Police Department directly at 746-8500. Any offenders that choose to use the illegal fireworks will be subject to a $1,000 fine. Fireworks are responsible for an estimated of 11,000 injuries nationwide. Not only do they cause injury, they also scare our pets and our veterans, those that are suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome. So with the campaign, we want to encourage the community to help spread the word, share our content that's on social media, and most importantly, celebrate safely this holiday. So this is something we pushed out last year. Unite We Cite. We started pushing it out on our social media pages last week. This is just an example for you guys to see. In addition, this is another Unite We Cite content that we've also pushed out on social media. This year, and on top of the Unite We Cite, we want to also push out some fireworks safety tips. These are tips for residents to follow during July 1st and July 4th when they are using the safe and sane fireworks that are purchased from the stands. And in addition, working with animal control, some fireworks safety tips for your pets. This is just a short clip video that we created last week. So just real quick to note, working with Nick with animal control, he did mention that they get increased calls between 30 to 40% during the holiday weekend, during 4th of July with missing pets. So we're also going to be pushing out this information to kind of help them and remind the community, being that 4th of July falls on a weekend, animal control is closed. Again, call Shafter Police Department and not 911. So we're not holding up any emergency lines. And I will turn it over to Chief Zimmerman. Any questions?
It's very good. It's very nice.
Thank you.
I love that video.
I know it. I love it too.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, I'd like to give you all just a brief overview of kind of where we're at on the fireworks side of the house. We've got kind of like a mixed bag. We've got some good news and we've got some bad news. I would start with the bad news. So sorry, I'm a police officer. The bad news is clearly people are still willing to use illegal fireworks. We're starting to see and hear mostly the use of these illegal fireworks in most parts of the city right now. To that end, we've already started issuing citations. So that's one side of that. The good news is that our calls for service, when you compare them to last year, they're down by about 70%, which is really very significant. So last year at this time, May and halfway through June, we had about 180 calls for service. This year, we're just over 50. So that's the good news. And I like to attribute that to a couple of things. The first of which is our communication efforts. I think Rachel's done a fantastic job at pushing this information out to our community, and I guarantee you it's made a difference. The second is last year we issued about 21 citations. Some of those citations really resulted in some significant fines and other actions. I like to think that in a community our size, those 21 citations, all of those folks have family members who have family members who have family members. So I like to think that that also contributed to the reason for the decline in our calls for service. But this year, the plan is going to be very similar to last year. First of all, I would say that we're going to have more police officers in the neighborhoods, right? We have more officers out there. They're going to be able to see more, react more, respond more. So that's first and foremost. But we're also going to do a lot of targeted patrols. You know, we have all of the information from last year and the information that we're accumulating this year about where our hotspots are. And we're going to actively seek those that are still willing to use illegal fireworks. That's really the plan. It's not rocket science. All it is getting out there and putting boots on the ground, taking the phone calls and going to these calls for service. So if you can think about it, we had just under 300 calls for service last year. We only had 21 citations, but those 21 citations are significant when you think about how they affected people. So as Rachel said, we're encouraging those to go out and purchase legal fireworks. We're a big fan of those. And we're going to continue our efforts as we did last year. Any questions? Thank you.
Yes, sounds good. We have first-hand information at an early time, so everybody knows. Someone told me the other day you need to have it in the Shafter Press. Is it coming out too this week? Have you put something in the press? Yes, that might be good because I heard that. So yeah, that might help too. Okay. Any other comments? No.
And then just really quick, Mayor and Council, a couple of more items is, of course, you just approved going dark, July 6th council meeting. Happy 4th of July. And as we keep saying, you light, we will sight. COVID-19 update. As you know, today was the big reopening of California. There's, as I have previously said, there was the public reopening, and then we're still getting information from Cal OSHA on the workplace safety measures, which there's been a lot of, I don't want to say controversy, but a lot of discussion at the Cal OSHA board of what they are going to approve, not approve. The governor got involved himself. And so we're waiting to get additional guidelines from, or clarification from Cal OSHA on what are the workplace safety measures we are to adhere when talking about vaccinated folks, not vaccinated, and what those measures are. Public health at the county level is also going to be sharing information with us. So we're all standing by on what that looks like. But as far as the public environment, that's been reopened. There's only restrictions on mega events for indoor and outdoor. Public transportation, our transit, we will still be requiring face masks. So that's one of the areas that face masks are still required, whether you're vaccinated or not. So in case you get any calls from any resident that they try to use our transit service and they were asked to wear a mask, that's because that's one of the categories that has not yet been lifted for not wearing a mask. But we'll continue to have more information on that. Why that's relevant in terms of the workplace safety measures is because that will dictate when we can move from these temporary council chambers back to our regular chambers when we have more information on that. So just want to share that with you. And nothing further from me. Our Public Works Director does have one or two items to share with you. So Mike.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, members of the Shafter City Council, I just have one announcement to share with you. It involves a public outreach event that's scheduled for June 22nd. Staff previously briefed the council on the commencement of a local roadway safety plan, which is being developed on behalf of Shafter and other jurisdictions in the county. The motivation to prepare this plan is to qualify the county for certain types of roadway funding. But in reality, this is going to be a good planning document and a chance for the community to make their voices heard as far as what types of roadway projects should be prioritized. So a big component of the plan development is public outreach. And our consultant has scheduled a public outreach event for June 22nd at 5 p.m. via Zoom. And I understand that Rachel has made availability of this event. She posted on her social media outlets. And if the council would like to learn more about the event or the plan itself, I encourage you to contact me or the city clerk. Just want to make the council and the community aware of that opportunity. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone have any comments before we adjourn? No questions? Okay, we'll entertain a motion to recess for closed session for public employee performance evaluation.
Make a motion to move into closed session.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Givens, seconded by Councilmember Espinoza to recess, and it is 7:14. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. We are recessed.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Earlier tonight, the city council recessed into closed session. There was only one item on tonight's closed session agenda that was performance evaluation related to the city manager. All members of the city council were present and we have no reportable action related to that item.
Very good, thank you. So the last item is the adjournment. Okay,
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no.